Makiru Emba Nebijer Makiru Emba Nebijer Makiru Emba Nebijer Makiru Emba Nebijer. All right, that's it. Dua, greetings everyone, and thank you for joining in. And this evening, what we are going to do is a brief review of what we did the last time. And then from there, we're going to talk about the class going forward and the procedure, what is needed to matriculate in the class. We'll talk a little bit more about what it's about. And then we'll go forward from there. Many of you, or some of you, have asked serious spiritual questions. How do I overcome the fear of death? How do I attain enlightenment? How do I not let the world bother me? How do I control my mind? How do I control the cosmic forces? And these are serious spiritual questions. These are serious spiritual issues. And these are not the serious issues of the world, such as how is the stock market doing today, or what band is playing, or what group is coming to town, or what's the GDP, or anything like that. These are serious questions regarding the very substance and source of life itself. And luckily for us, the ancient sages of ancient Egypt discovered the answers to these questions and have laid out these teachings for us. If we are willing, if we are able, if we have more than a cursory interest in discovering the fundamental answer to these very serious questions and issues that arise in the human mind because of one's inculcation and participation in the world process. That's basically what's going on. You are participating in a process that by its very nature cajoles and conjures this kind of reflection. And if those questions have actually come to mind, then it's good. It's something that's good, because most of the common people, they're not really thinking about these things. They're thinking about who's going to win the World Series, or who's going to get drafted, or when does the football season start, things like that. They're not really serious about life and death. The text that we will be going through, how it has been planned, is to go through the text from beginning to end, because the text reads that way. It's a developmental process from stage to stage. And if we take pieces of it, then there will be no whole understanding. And the reason why to do it that way is because the condition of the world. Can everyone please mute your devices so that everyone can hear? Yeah, that would be appreciated. And the reason why I decided to do this class is because we are living, all times are serious. You hear that? We're living in serious time, but we're living in a precarious condition in the human drama, with climate change, with the political system the way it is, where the ecology is on the very brink of collapse. In fact, the collapse of the ecology, the biosphere, has already begun. And as you can see, the nation states and even amongst individuals, they can't solve their differences without bombing each other, without sending jet planes and fighting all the time, because of a culture that has been developed that is primarily one of greed and aggression. So because of this, I decided that now is the time to bring out these teachings. I've known about these teachings for quite a while, but have just kept them and not really given it much thought about when to bring them out, but now is the time. So if you are more than interested in these teachings, then that is good. It says something about you and a growing maturity of your mind. If that maturity continues, then a teaching such as this will be very beneficial for you. These teachings were given to the Pharaohs. I don't know if you know this, they're given to the kings and the queens by the priesthood who were involved in designing and constructing the burial places for the kings in the New Kingdom era. And so they're very secretive, very and not well espoused because of the nature of the text and who was receiving the teachings at that time. I'm saying that so that you can feel the profundity of it, so that you can feel the gravity of it, so that you can recognize how special it really is. So with that introduction, we'll do a brief review of what we did the last time, and then we'll go forward and discuss how to get involved with the teaching and the process going forward. So in the ancient Egyptian literature, the name for gods and goddesses is Neteru. Neter means the single divine principle, and Neteru are all the divinities that arise from that single divine principle. And you have what are called Paut. A Paut is a company or a group of gods and goddesses. You have a high divinity, so you have Amun, Ra, Ptah. These are high divinities, and you have lesser divinities under them. And this is called henotheism. But in ancient Egyptian literature, there's also a very there's also a very philosophical idea of absolute monism, meaning that there is only God and there is nothing else. So in ancient Egyptian religion, you have both. You have henotheism, which is you have one divine essence, which is inscrutable, which is beyond human comprehension, that generates the lesser gods and goddesses. If you study the lesser gods and goddesses, you gain insight into the one where your mind cannot conceptualize. And then you discover that within yourself. So ancient Egyptian religion is not a faith-based, meaning All you have to do is have faith, have faith, have faith. These things must be realized. They must be proven true. And they're proven true by your own direct mystical experience of them. And so ancient Egyptian religion is a mystical path. That you're not to have faith and faith and faith and faith until you die. Is that you must realize these truths within yourself and realize the ultimate truth within yourself. And then we have, these are the way how divinities are constructed. So you have what I call anthropomorphic deities, which are deities of human form. You have zoomorphic deities, which are deities in animal form. And you have composite divinities. These are divinities that are both animal and human together. And so the reason why they do this is these divinities represent certain divine principles. And if you make the divinities familiar, you'll get caught with the form and you won't try to understand the essence or the philosophy behind the divinity. If you make all the divinities looking, say, a male figure, then that would lead to confusion and not be able to gain deeper insight into the principle or the philosophy behind the deity, behind the divinity. Divinities are also seen standing. This is Goddess Sekhmet. She's composite. She has the lioness face with the female body. And she has the sun disk with the serpent encircling. And here's her. So you see divinities standing, you see them sitting. This is Sekhmet again sitting. You see them crouching, you see them as animal forms. Again, the idea is not the form, the idea is the principle that the form represents. Then we went through the Anunian creation story very briefly of how the world came into existence. Kepera rose out of the primordial ocean, which is a production of Nebuchadnezzar, the all-encompassing divinity. And Nebuchadnezzar acted on himself to produce the world. And these divinities, Ma'at, Jehuti, Sekhmet, they represent the principles behind creation, not the creation itself. For example, Ma'at represents the orderliness. Jehuti represents, and this is very brief, the mental idea of creation. And Sekhmet represents the life force that coagulates creation. These divinities, Tefnut, Shu, Nut, and Geb, these divinities are the cosmic divinities. Tefnut is the moisture and life force, Shu is the air, and they're paired. Geb is the earth, and Nut is the heavens, and they are paired. These divinities, Aset, Asar, Nebuchadnezzar, Set, Heru, these are the divinities that comprise human consciousness. When you master these divinities within yourself, you transcend to the higher cosmic divinities. When you transcend these divinities within yourself, you transcend and realize yourself as Kepera. When you realize this principle within yourself, then you go beyond that which is inscrutable, uncompounded. So basically, that's what we spoke about the last time. You have three aspects or three stages of religion. You have myth, which is a storytelling. You have the ritual, which is a mythic performance. and you have mysticism, which is the actualization. And you need all three to have a proper functioning religious process. If you have myth and no ritual and no mysticism, then you're just being la la land all the time, thinking about stories and stories, and not realizing the depth of the story or understanding the truth behind the story, realizing it. If you have ritual and mysticism, if you have ritual and no myth or mysticism, you'll always be doing things. Burning incense, lighting candles, offering fruits, you'll always be doing things, but you won't understand the meaning behind it. If you try mysticism, which is to try to actualize the teaching, where you have no ritual, then you have no, the ritual leads into the mysticism. So mysticism is like trying to drive a car without the ritual. The ritual is the engine. Then the mysticism is the car taking you where you want to go. So try driving a car without an engine, see what happens. So you need all three. You need myth, ritual, and mysticism all together to realize the premise of the teaching, which is the enlightenment, to become enlightened. You have a threefold process of spiritual cultivation. And we're going to enact these processes in our class, in our teachings. You have listening to the teaching. So you have to listen to the teaching. Then you have to sejam, listening with an open heart. You're listening like you remember when you were young, when you were a child, or if you have your own children, and you put on the TV with the cartoons, they're transfixed. You're calling them and they can't move. They're so transfixed on the lesson, the cartoon or whatever. And that's how you are to come to the teaching, with that kind of fixation for the understanding of the philosophy. And after that, you have to take that which was listened to, and what you do outside of listening, when you're not sitting listening to the teaching in the class, you have to reflect and contemplate on that. And this is more than thinking about it. This is silent contemplation of bringing serious thought about what has been listened to the mind, and seeing where you fit within that, what you have listened to, and to see if that is that which you have listened to reflect on how to make that real and alive in your life. How to transform what one has listened to into an actual transformation of your personality. Being contemplative. Then you have to take what you have listened to and reflect it upon. And you have to meditate on it. And so we will be doing certain meditation disciplines, meditation practices throughout the course. Because there are certain areas where, in the text, where certain meditations are alluded to. And we'll talk about those later. So what we'll be doing is the Seba'it, the written philosophical teaching of the DUAT. And we're going to see, this is sort of the legend of the yellow. You're going to see a yellow script, and that's a transliteration. That's taking these symbols, the Kemetic symbols, and putting them into English letters. Then you take those English letters and you put them and you translate them into the English words, and that's the translation. Then you take the English words and you give the philosophical premise. I'll be giving the philosophical premise of those English words. The reason the translation, ancient Egyptian translation, reads like how Yoda speaks. Yoda, the Star Wars character. How he, instead of saying "come here," he says "here come." Like, and so to understand this in philosophical terms. Okay. To understand this in philosophical terms, this what has been translated needs to be placed in a philosophical dictum. So it's an art and a science of transforming what has been translated into the philosophical premise of what the hieroglyphic text is saying. And here's an example. This term is shetaut neter. Shetaut neter. And these are determinatives. Okay, so you take this and you put shetaut neter, transliteration. But what does that shetaut neter mean in English? When you transliterate it, what does it mean in English? Mystery, divine, or divinity. So mysteries of the divine, mysteries of the divinity. And the philosophical premise behind this, what it's saying philosophically is the hidden divinity which is inscrutable to the senses. So that's what we will be going through as we go through the text. And this is the text, this is a portion of the text that was a photograph taken from one of the, I believe this is one of the Ramesside Pharaohs, one of the Ramesside kings, inside his tomb. I was able to go in there and take photographs and so forth. So we'll be using some photographs that I've taken. We're going to use it to augment certain aspects of the class as we go along. And I'll show you how it fit into the text, so you can see it in living color. So you can see it in color, and it can make more sense to you how it was laid out in the burial places, the burial chapels. And this is what we are to do. As followers of this teaching, this is the body of the goddess Nut. This is in the temple of Dendera, the temple of Heteru. This is how it looked when it was first found, after this area was abandoned, after the downfall period. And here it is all cleaned out and looking nice, and you can go in there and see what's in there. So here's a long walkway into the temple. From where the bus parks to here is probably about a quarter mile or so, something like that. So you walk in to this entrance, and the original door went up to here. There's a very tall door. And these pylons, these facing pylons, are the face, as you can see them drawn here. The capitals of those pylons is the face of the goddess Heteru. So you walk in here and you make a left. And you walk all the way to the end of this first hall. And you look up, you go walk all the way to the wall. So you walk all the way to the edge. You look up, and on the ceiling, you see this. And I don't want to tell you what these are, because then we'll start a whole new conversation going in a whole different direction. But anyway, these are the divinities of the zodiac. So what Goddess Nut is doing here is that she's bent over like this. Her hands are touching the ground, and she's standing on her feet and her fingertips. And here is a wing disc, which represents Ra, to her mouth. And this is her body. All of this is her body. This is her feet. And as you can see, on her body, there are wave lines. This is actually an extension of the hieroglyphic symbol that means end. And you put them together, and what it means here, that her body is the primordial ocean, the primordial essence. The primordial ocean is all here right now. And the objects rise out of it and dissolve back into it. If you leave, let's say some organic matter, it's probably easier for the mind to grasp right now. Some organic matter, you leave it there. You leave an apple, and you leave that apple there for 3 months. You see it start to wrinkle and crumple and disintegrate, and it starts to shrink. What's happening is that the particles of that object, that apple, is disintegrating and reverberating back into unformed matter. So Ra goes into the mouth of Goddess Nut. She eats him, and he travels her body, and she gives birth to him again in the morning. So every morning she's giving birth to Ra, and every evening she eats him. So her mouth is the west, and her vagina is the east. But inside her body is the east and the west. And so we're going to be studying what's inside her body. We're going to be traveling inside of her. That inside her body is the DUAT, the netherworld, the world of the divinities, the gods and goddesses. So when you wake up in the morning and you see the sun rising, you say, oh, Goddess Nut, she's giving birth to Ra right now. Then he travels his day bark over the heavens. And in the west, when you see the sun going down, you say, oh, Nut is eating Ra right now. It's going into her body. And so you're going to take that same journey of Ra into her body. And that's what the teaching is about. Okay? Now, how to get involved with the teaching. That's what we're going to talk about. So this is the Temple of Net Aratsakam Shetout Neter website. And this is the home page. You can see there are all the tabs here. Before we actually do that, I'd like to show you something. Here is these are all the lectures, the lecture topics that are on the website. So everything you see here, multiple lectures have been given on all of these topics. Wisdom teachings by these various sages, their writings teachings have been given on all of this. The Hermetic text is still going on with the Perfect Sermon, Mott Philosophy, a little on the Tree of Life. I'd like to do more on that. Goddess Tradition, Memphite Theology. The primary theologies of ancient Egyptian religion have already been given. Memphite Theology, Amunian Theology, Atonism. Here we have the Netarian Creed, the Four Great Truths of Shetout Neter, teachings on the Assyrian resurrection, and so forth. But I don't know, how many lectures are on here now, probably in the thousands probably. So people who join the website, you're privy to all of this that have been done it's all here collected on the website. Then the step ahead is the classroom. And this is where your lectures are going to be stored specifically. And these are the closed classes that we have. We have the AEM, which is the Ancient Egyptian Medicine class. That has been going on for over a year now. So we have Ancient Egyptian medicine students. And that class is twice a week. Then we have GBM certification, the Golden Body Meditation certification we did earlier this year. All of those lectures, the entire lecture series from beginning to end have been collected and put here. And so the ones who participated in that can go back and review those for deeper study and so forth. Not with sophisticated editing or anything, but all of the lectures are there. And now we're going to add the DUAT. I'm going to put all your lectures here. And we're going to be talking a lot of lectures. If it goes the way how it's designed and has been conceived, how it's been conceived and all of that is going to be, I don't know how many, maybe a couple hundred lectures or whatever, something like that. It's going to be a very detailed and we're going to construct it and deconstruct it, construct it and deconstruct it, construct it and deconstruct it, construct it. So it's going to go like a vibration. So all of your lectures are going to be here. So you'll get the password to get into there when we start collecting them and putting them on there as we go week by week. We have an announcements page where the announcements of what's going on with the organization and all of that is put here. We try to keep it up to date best we can. To subscribe to the website, you go here, hit the subscribe button, and then that takes care of that. So now the DUAT. So for the DUAT, you click here, and what's on there already is the introductory lecture with information about when it started and all of that. And then you scroll down, you fill out this form, not too intrusive, just your first name, your last name, your email address, and if you want to send a message. And you push subscribe, and it's going to be monthly cost, and so it's going to be monthly, and the cost is right here. And so that's what we're going to do here. So needless to say, it's going to be a vast teaching. And it's going to give you insight into the psychology of a spiritual practitioner. And we're going to talk more about that as we do in a class. Because there's a difference between the psychology of a normal person, meaning like your friends who don't care nothing about this, or your coworker who cares nothing about this, or the guy across the street that doesn't care anything about this. People like that. It's a little different when you start to practice and meditate, and certain aspects of your psyche can be identified. When those aspects of your psyche are identified, then there are certain things that you can do to awaken certain potentialities of your mind that leads to higher spiritual attainment. Basically, that's what's about. when we do the class, we're going to get more detailed and highly specific. Number one, because I want to do a nice philosophical erudition on it, but also, number two, the text calls for that kind of sophistication and precision, philosophically and metaphysically as well. Okay? So to sign up for the class, we're going to start next Friday. So I think the Friday at 8 p.m. is working out well, so we'll keep that. But to be allowed in, you must have remitted payment by then, and then we'll start. We'll start with the opening lines to the text, and you'll see, and we'll go from there. And so we're going to start with the hieroglyphics, going through the text and breaking it down. What was done last week was very fundamental. What we're going to start to do is to deconstruct it so that you can see exactly what the text is talking about, how it relates to you, and then we construct it. The construction is within your mind, within your understanding, and within the text. And then we continue to do that and continue to do that. And you go along with the process, and you start to, you'll see. Okay, enough said. Okay, so are there any questions? Yes, what is your question? From Shems. That's a very good question. How does it compare to the 12 gates of the Practitioner? And that's what we're going to talk about when the class starts. It's you're asking me to give it away. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. It's similar, but you'll see when we start talking about it. Because the 12 gates of the Practitioner has a certain architectural feature. The architectural features are not exactly the same. And so you'll see how they differ in that regards. And you'll see what I mean by architectural feature. Because these architectural features are components of the psyche, of the unconscious. So we'll talk about that. I wasn't thinking of bringing it up, but now that you bring it up, we can certainly talk about it. Because this teaching can go on very long, so. Anything else? Okay, so if there are no other questions, for those who will go forward and sign up for the class, we'll meet again next week. If you have any questions that you want to send through email, you can do that, and we'll get started. Okay? Makiru Emba Nebejer. Makiru Emba Navager Makiru Emba Navager. Attack.
Đùa hết trơn.